Part 2. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gumu Shuang. Chapter 11. Yingwan agreed, which undoubtedly solved the biggest worry in Lin Mei's heart. She hurriedly told Su Xiao the good news, and Su Xiao naturally breathed a sigh of relief. In any case, she didn't want to see Lin Mei's career Waterloo. Having such a family is already miserable enough. But Yingwan didn't go anywhere. She lived in her own house, and Lin Mei would move in after the program officially started recording and broadcasting in a month. She had to get used to rural life in this month. Yingwan frowned when she returned home and continued to cook dinner. Why did she agree? She knew what recording a program meant, which was to completely disclose their traces of life. Yingwan was a person who didn't like to be disturbed, but after all, she only took a year off. After recording this program, she didn't want to appear in the public eye, and no one could disturb her. She didn't worry about the influence that this program might bring. As long as she didn't want to, the country would help her hide everything. The aroma of the food gradually came into her nose. Because she had just returned, she didn't make a lot of troublesome meals, just stewed a chicken. The chicken was fragrant and tender, even though it was just chicken stewed in water. She added wild mushrooms picked from the mountains. The fresh and fragrant mushrooms blended with the strong smell of chicken, creating an indescribable delicacy. In this quiet and silent mountain village, a wisp of tempting smell wafted out. If the students in the laboratory saw her, it would probably be hard for them to imagine that she could cook. She couldn't finish a chicken, so she took a ceramic bowl and put 3/4 of it away, and then put some mushrooms and soup in it. The porcelain bowl was full, and the chicken in the bowl was trembling, tempting golden yellow. She covered it with a lid, held the porcelain bowl, and walked down the hillside. And he in the village was preparing dinner at home. And he was the daughter-in-law of Aunt Lu in the village. She was from another province and married to Huayang village. She was kind and honest, and very dutiful. When Mr. Ying was in his later years, he was very troublesome and refused Yingwan's proposal to take him to a nursing home. He wanted to stay in Huayang village and didn't want to be taken care of by strangers. It was Aunt He who took care of him. And he worked hard and didn't mention the matter of compensation. Of course, Yingwan paid her later, but Aunt He was close to her, so she would bring down the extra food to Aunt He sometimes. She was thrifty and didn't like to eat too good food, but she had 2 growing children at home. Yingwan didn't comment on other people's lifestyles. She only remembered how good the villagers were to her and her grandfather. Aunt He's home was down the hill, a 2-story small flat building, which is not uncommon in rural areas now. Outside was the yard, and the gate of the yard was closed. Yingwan knocked on the door through the gate. Aunt He. The center of Aunt He's house could be seen through the gate. It was bright and there was the smell of food. She was making dinner. Aunt He was surprised to see Yingwan coming, and hurried over to open the door for her. "Wan, you're here to bring food again so late at night." She opened the door and saw Yingwan holding a large ceramic bowl in her hand, and whispered, "Did you bring it to your sister?" Yingwan frowned. "My sister?" And he smiled on her chubby face. "Yes, your sister is staying at my house tonight." Yingwan. She thought this person would leave tonight. The chicken in her hand suddenly didn't smell so good. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gumu Shuang. Chapter 12. But since the things were already brought, there was no reason to take them back. Yingwan was silent for a moment, and handed the chicken to Aunt He, saying only one sentence, "I made too much, and I'm giving it to you." Aunt He was already used to it, and after taking it, she couldn't help but continue to say a few words to her. "Wan, Aunt He told you that you shouldn't be so wasteful when you cook alone at home. You can only stew half of the chicken at a time. Aunt He feels so embarrassed that you always send it to Aunt He." Yingwan, "It's okay." When Aunt He brought it in, she said, "Wan, Come in and sit down. Yingwan said, no, and I'm going back to eat, you guys eat slowly. She smiled, turned around and left. And he looked at Yingwan's back, slightly puzzled. Her sister came to Huayang village to find Yingwan, which was a big deal, so the whole Huayang village knew about it. And he heard from the eldest daughter next door that Yingwan's sister was a big star, and she was excited every day like a harasser. And he really didn't know whether they were stars or not. In her impression, stars were almost all old artists who were active in the last century. However, Lin Mei and her so-called agent were really generous. Because He's house still had an empty room, Lin Mei and Su Xiao rented her house. Stay for 2 days to get to know the place. And he certainly didn't know about the recording of the program. She just thought Lin Mei was waiting for the sister. When he brought the chicken back, the 2 little guys in the house quickly ran up and cheered, "Sister Yingwan has sent delicious food again." And he smiled and said, "You are the only ones who are greedy, but there is also Yingwan's sister, let's eat together later." After that, she went upstairs to call people and shouted directly downstairs, "Ms. Lin, Miss Su, it's time to eat, are you coming down to eat?" Lin Mei and Su Xiao were in the room upstairs. They were not used to everything in the countryside. Su Xiao was okay, especially Lin Mei. No matter what, she grew up in the Lin family. The rural environment was beyond her imagination. If the conditions were not better now, Lin Mei would not be able to stay in such a place for 3 days. And his house was okay, but Lin Mei was a little worried when she thought of Yingwan's house. The house was really broken beyond her imagination, and it was a tiled house. She was playing with her mobile phone listlessly. When she heard the shouting from downstairs, Su Xiao responded first, and "Thank you, we don't want to eat." Contemporary urban women don't eat dinner. Especially Lin Mei, she is a star and has to pay special attention to her figure. She is already thin, but she looks so on camera. The haters are more demanding than the fans. Lin Mei is absolutely strict with herself in terms of her figure. And he said loudly again, "You really don't want to eat? This is sent to you by Wan Wan." Although Yingwan said it was for her, how could he feel embarrassed when her sister was there? Wan Wan. Lin Mei almost didn't react, and immediately sat up from the bed. "Is it Yingwan?" Su Xiao laughed, "Your cheap sister." Why did she feel that Yingwan didn't look like this kind of cold-faced but warm-hearted person? Although she had agreed to record the program with Lin Mei, but she sent food in the evening, a bit fantasy. Lin Mei didn't think too much, and her expression was a little hesitant. "Then I'll go down and take a look." Su Xiao, okay. She also followed him down. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 13. They actually don't like the food in the countryside. In fact, the taste can't be said to be bad or not, but there are definitely not as many varieties as in the city, and the appearance. The 2 have always had a poor appetite. And he saw them coming down and smiled. "I told you, Wan Wan cooks delicious food. You are so lucky as a sister." Lin Mei didn't comment on what he said about the delicious food. What kind of delicacies has she not eaten in the city? She smiled hesitantly, and "What did Wan Wan send?" And he said, "Chicken." Chicken. Lin Mei hesitated for a moment. She didn't like chicken, and no matter what kind of meat it was, as long as it was eaten at night, it was an absolute ban for her. She was so hungry that she could only eat half an apple at most. If she hadn't heard that it was Wan Wan who sent it, she wouldn't have come down. While she was still hesitating, and he had already opened the lid of the ceramic bowl. In an instant, a fresh and fragrant smell spread throughout the living room. It was like the smell of mushrooms with the natural breath of the mountains, and the rich and fragrant smell of chicken soup, mixed together to form an intoxicating smell. Just smelling it makes people salivate. It is hard to imagine what kind of delicious food this is. Lin Mei smelled the smell and her expression was shocked at the time. She walked over and saw that because the road was not far, the chicken soup was still as fresh and hot as it was when it was served from the pot. The smell followed the hot air and drifted into people's noses. And his two children swallowed their saliva at the moment. Su Xiao walked over in surprise and said incredulously, "Is your sister's food so fragrant? Is this stewed chicken?" "Well, with mushrooms, I don't know what seasoning she added. Why is it so fresh and fragrant? The chicken soup I drank before didn't taste like this." As she spoke, she couldn't control herself at the moment, and took a small bowl brought by Aunt He without hesitation and filled herself with a bowl of soup. After a sip, a strong chicken soup and mushroom flavor rolled into the abdomen, as if warming the heart from the taste buds, and the taste was so fresh that I didn't know how to describe it, but I only knew that it was delicious. Su Xiao was shocked. "Is this really made by the cold Yingwan?" And he grinned, "I told you, Wan Wan's cooking is delicious, you are so lucky." The two little guys couldn't hold back, and Aunt He also moved, but she was embarrassed to move the trembling big chicken leg. She first served the two children with chicken soup and rice, and then picked up 2 pieces of chicken with skin scraps for them. Just like this, it was fragrant enough to make people unbearable. Su Xiao turned his head and looked at Lin Mei. "I don't recommend you to eat it, this is chicken dash." "No, eat a little." Lin Mei opened her mouth to speak, but she couldn't control it, and a line of saliva overflowed from the corners of her mouth. "Lin Mei." "Su Xiao." Su Xiao was shocked. "Look at you, my God, ha 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 ha, come and eat, I'll allow you to have a meal, but you can't eat at night in the future, you can't get fat, you know." The requirements of celebrities are so harsh. Su Xiao has strict standards for Lin Mei's figure. Of course they know that dieting is not a good way, but celebrities are too busy and have no time to exercise, so they can only control their mouths. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 14. Lin Mei thought that it would take another month anyway, so she simply indulged herself. A large bowl of chicken was eaten cleanly by them. Lin Mei didn't expect that Ying Wan's cooking would be so delicious, and now she wasn't so disgusted with having to stay in the countryside. If Ying Wan cooks for her every day, it won't be a big deal if she stays there for half a year. However, she also knew, whether it was Ying Wan or her, this matter was unrealistic. The imperial capital, Si family. Si Lu's father rarely sat at the same dinner table with Si Lu. Both father and son are too busy. One often travels all over the world to work, while the other is wild and unruly and does not obey the discipline of the family at all. Every time they meet, it is a father-son fight. It was rare that today the two of them sat together calmly. Of course, these are all appearances. Many people said that Si Lu didn't look like Si Guanyi's son. Si Guanyi is restrained, calm, and personable. He is an elegant son of a well-known family. He has been someone else's child since he was born. He is smart, and it is natural to inherit the position of the Si family. His wife is equally perfect, elegant, generous, and a daughter of a famous family. It happened that Si Lu was born, a freak. It is said that every family has a problem that is difficult to recite, and Si Lu is the one who has a difficult time reciting it. As the only eldest son of the Si family, he has a weird temper, a bad temper, and an unstable personality. Maybe if you say this carefully, he will fall out with you. People who don't know him think he is a psycho, and those who know him a little bit have a hard time with him. He has a bad relationship with his father. Although he has inherited the good genes of his parents, he does not do the right things. Si Guanyi's expectation for him is that he will inherit the Si family, but Si Lu has been abroad all the time and rarely comes back. Every time he comes back to the country, he has countless fines from abroad. Fines in every sense of the word. The only good thing about the Si family is that at least Si Lu doesn't commit murder or arson. Silu. Si Guanyi was wearing a grey suit. He was still as graceful and elegant as a middle-aged man, without any signs of age. He is very well maintained and handsome. When he goes out, others may think that he is Si Lu's brother. Si Lu, who was sitting opposite him, was wearing a black shirt. He put one hand cynically on the back of the chair, and put the other hand on the table to play with a silver grey limited edition lighter. His face was astonishing, and his delicate features seemed to have been carefully fabricated. He inherited the perfect genes of Si Guanyi and his wife, and Si Lu took the best parts of them and combined them into a perfect face. The ends of his eyes were slightly raised, showing a bit of evil nature, especially at this moment with the sarcastic sneer on his thin lips, but he seemed careless. Only his innate nobility made people a little afraid. Si Guanyi couldn't suppress him. He knew his son's virtue and the opportunity to talk peacefully was rare, so he told his story gently. Yingwan from the Special Research Institute has come out. The news released to the outside world is that she will take a year's rest. She has now returned to her hometown. She didn't announce anything when she left. I got the news that Yingwan still has at least 3 research results in hand. Announce it? One of them is what our group needs. I need you to find her and negotiate cooperation with her before others. Si Lu played with the lighter for a moment, then raised his eyes to look at Si Guanyi. He said, "Who is Yingwan?" Si Lu is the male protagonist. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 15. I remember you should have met her. Si Guanyi looked at Si Lu with a gentle look. Si Lu tilted his head and curled his lips. I forgot. Si Guanyi did not continue to ask, but said, then you only need to know that Yingwan has what we need. You have to get her to agree to cooperate with us before others. I believe you can do it. Si Lu sneered, why don't you go for such an important matter? Si Guanyi said, she knows what I do. If I go, she may not be willing to talk to me. You are not young anymore. I can let you take over the family affairs later, but you must fulfill your responsibilities in this matter. You are my son, Si Guanyi, do you understand? The most important thing is that you are only 4 years older than her. Si Lu seemed to have heard a fairy tale. You want me to seduce her? Are you crazy? Has he, Si Lu, fallen to this point? Si Guanyi was elegant and calm. If you can seduce her, you are capable. After that, in order to avoid a fearless quarrel with his son, he left directly. Si Lu. He glanced at Si Guanyi who was leaving, and thought of what he said, and laughed coldly. Yingwan took some time to go to the city and buy some things. In addition, the house needs to be renovated in the next few days, so she can't live in the house for the time being. She is going to live there for so long, and the previous house is indeed shabby, and it must be renovated. Holding a cardboard box, the man in black beside Yingwan respectfully said, Miss Ying, do you really not need us to help you deal with everything? Yingwan, I like to do my own things. The man in black nodded and said nothing more. Yingwan temporarily lived in the house in the city, and received a call just after moving in. The voice on the other end was a little vague. Boss, they said you retired, and as your second in command, I only learned about this news now. Shouldn't you have returned to the company as soon as you retired? Yingwan curled his lips, I feel relieved to have you in the company. The other end, can you speak human language? Yingwan, isn't the salary I pay high enough? The other end took a deep breath, and then a series of words came over, is this a salary issue? Boss, you have to know that I am also a person. I am a person. I am not a god like you, who has no pressure to do 4 things at the same time. I have to deal with many things every day, and I am busy like a top all day long. Management personnel, we have recruited batch after batch, but it is still not enough. I am counting on you to retire and solve my problem. Even if you have a lot of money, I have to live a good life. Tell me, what is your reason for not returning to the company? Yingwan smiled and said in a clear voice, you stay busy for another year. I will be busy with other things for a year. When it is almost done, I will come back and give you a long vacation. How about it? The other party was skeptical. Really? Yingwan, yes. Hearing about the long vacation, the caller felt much better, so he smacked his lips. Okay, I will be busy for another year. After a while, he wondered again, your retirement does not mean that the research is finished. Is there a new problem this time? Besides this, I can't think of any other reason why Yingwan would not return to the company. Yingwan, probably, I went back to the countryside and wanted to farm. The other party. You seem to be teasing me. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 16. In the next few days, Lin Mei got familiar with the area in Huiyang village, although she complained about the troublesome road conditions to Huiyang village. However, after seeing that Huiyang village had started to build a road, Lin Mei said to Su Xiao, it seems that we are lucky, otherwise I would have paid for a road to be built here, so that next time I come, it won't be so troublesome. To get to Huiyang village, you have to change several buses. There is not even a bus that goes straight. Su Xiao, yes. The conditions in the countryside are like that, and there is no entertainment. I really don't know how Lin Mei and Yingwan will pass the time during such a long recording time. Su Xiao almost imagined the boring situation of Yingwan and Lin Mei staring at each other for 24 hours a day. By that time, the ratings of their live broadcast will be at the bottom. But now, as long as the task is completed, Su Xiao no longer cares whether it can bring any changes to Lin Mei. No matter how important the image is, it is not as important as losing 200 million. Before they were about to leave, they went to the back village. And he said that Yingwan had hired workers to renovate the house in the past 2 days. Lin Mei could see the bustling scene of Yingwan's house from a distance, but it was a pity that Yingwan was not there. Thinking of this, Lin Mei couldn't help but feel a little happy. Sister Xiao, do you think Yingwan renovated the house because she wanted to record a program with me? Su Xiao couldn't help but look at her with pity. After all, she is in the entertainment industry, how can she be so naive? Ask yourself, do you think she is doing it for you? She just came back not long ago, and it is normal to renovate the house, okay? Lin Mei. Ah. She didn't think about the good side. Did she want Yingwan to be the same as the Lin family? I don't know what the Lin family would think when they knew that Yingwan agreed to record a program with her. Thinking of this, Lin Mei still felt a little sad. Su Xiao called her. Okay, we should leave. We have to go back to do a lot of things. If you don't pack up some things, how will you live when you move here? There is only 1 month left. Lin Mei nodded and followed Su Xiao away. A few days later, Yingwan returned home. She invited people who were not ordinary people, so she moved quickly. The house left by her grandfather had changed a lot. Because the yard was very large, and it was useless, Yingwan changed a lot of places. She dug a pond in the middle of the left side of the yard, and the water flowed slowly. There were fish fry in it, and there were occasionally a few big fish. A small bridge was built in the middle to connect to the hillside outside. 2 plots of land were reclaimed on both sides of the pond, and vegetables have begun to be planted. A pavilion was built on the right side, and a swing frame was placed under the big tree next to the pavilion. The house was surrounded by a hidden fence wall. On the fence wall, the transplanted flower vines were densely hung. When the wind blew, the fragrance of flowers was dense. Various flowers bloomed around the house, making this small mountain village have the taste of a paradise. The room was almost finished. The living room was no longer made of frozen mud, but was paved with special stone slabs. It was odorless and transparent gray, and people could move in soon. The whole courtyard had been moved into some furniture, and it really had the taste of home. She sat on the swing, surrounded by busy workers, but no one came to disturb her. She looked at the scene and thought of her grandfather. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gum Yushuang. Chapter 17. Yingwan was picked up by her grandfather when she was a baby. At that time, no one knew who she was. Later, as she grew up, Yingwan showed her very smart side. Even in the same village, the teacher was amazed by Yingwan's intelligence. She remembered things clearly that others needed a long time or even couldn't remember. She could learn arithmetic once it was taught, and she didn't need a second time at all. She could even react faster than the teacher. The teacher told her grandfather that Yingwan was very smart and said that Yingwan was not suitable to stay in the mountain village. She was so smart that staying here would delay her. Later, her grandfather found an acquaintance and tried to send Yingwan to a better place, and then she attracted special attention. Yingwan was smarter than they thought, even terribly smart. The professor who taught her said that people like Yingwan might only appear once in 100 years. She was a true genius. In other people's words, she was a fairy. She didn't have to work hard to learn anything, even if she was not interested in it. For her, anything was basically not difficult at all. She was very interested in physics, chemistry, and mathematics. At the age of 9, she had learned what others might have to learn in their 20s. After that, she was sent to the world's top school, Hatton, for further studies. She was taught by world-renowned professors. After studying for a few years, she became a teacher. At the age of a teenager, she had already reached a level that others could not imagine. Or, it was a level that 99.9% of people could not reach in their lifetime. Later, she entered the laboratory, delved into various topics, and conducted scientific experiments. She was very interested in high technology. She created many high-tech products, and received many patents and awards. However, because of her deliberately low-key personality, this genius has been hiding in private. Until last year, she finally got tired of it. The death of her grandfather also had a certain impact on her. Others may have just started their 24th year, but for her, it was time to retire. Retirement is of course just a superficial statement. The country cannot let her play for long, not to mention that she has her own company. The company is now managed by a dedicated person, so she doesn't need to worry too much. She just needs a simple rest for a year, and then do what she is interested in. However, for the people in Huayang village, Yingwan was just a little girl who had finally finished her studies outside and returned to the countryside to start a life. Yingwan had known about the Lin family's affairs for a long time. At her stage, many things would be handled properly by someone. All the information about the Lin family was placed on her desk when she was a teenager. She glanced at it and had no interest at all. Because the Lin family deliberately abandoned her. This reason alone, Yingwan would never have a chance again. For Lin Mei, it was probably the last bit of inexplicable sympathy in her heart. Because Lin Mei was the eldest sister of the Lin family, the reason why Yingwan was abandoned was that the Lin family had not reached the current point at that time, and they only wanted a son. Yingwan's birth was disappointing, and Yu Wenzi suffered from depression for a period of time. So the Lin family didn't like Yingwan at all. The Lin family already had a redundant Lin Mei, so there couldn't be another redundant Yingwan. She and Lin Mei were both redundant. But fate still intertwined them together. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 18. Because she was discovered very early, she didn't have much time to spend with her grandfather. But in Yingwan's heart, she always remembered that kind and amiable grandfather. He was the only family in her whole life. At this moment, she felt a look of scrutiny. She looked up and saw Aunt He standing outside the fence gate, talking to a woman of about the same age. The woman's face was sallow, and she had lost her original color due to years of hard work. When she looked at Yingwan, she had a special scrutiny. There seemed to be some dissatisfaction in her eyes. Yingwan just glanced at them and didn't say anything. Someone came forward and said in a low voice, "Miss Ying, do you need me to ask them to leave? The country will send people to protect her, so these people are hiding around her and will appear in various forms. In fact, they are all protecting her safety." Yingwan shook her head, and the man consciously retreated and continued to help. After waiting for a while, the woman left first, and he walked to the fence gate, and Yingwan walked over to open the door. And he saw Yingwan and smiled naively. "Wan, I want to talk to you about something." Yingwan nodded, and he, "Go ahead." And he said, "Did you see that ant just now? She is from Haishan village next door. She has a son who is 25 years old this year. After graduating from college, he found a job in the city and can earn 5,000 or 6,000 yuan a month. He is very capable. His family also bought a house in the county. She came to me to matchmake. I thought you are 24 years old, so I told you about it. Do you want to go and see? Don't worry, and he will never lie to you. His family conditions are really good." Yingwan knew what she wanted to say when she saw her talking to that person. This situation is very common in rural areas. She is already 24 and still not married. Basically, she is a freak in the eyes of others. In recent years, this kind of thinking is gradually changing, but for women like Aunt He who have married from other provinces and stayed for decades, it is a deep-rooted idea that life is complete only after getting married and having children. She didn't mean any harm. Yingwan's grandfather was gone and she had no relatives, so she wanted to help introduce him. She didn't know much about Yingwan's biological family, she just knew that Yingwan said she would not go back. And he thought that Yingwan was already 24 years old, and it was the best to introduce him to Yingwan first if someone suitable came to her. Yingwan smiled after hearing what she said, and he, "I know you are doing this for my own good, but the situation is different. I have a lot of things to do and don't want to get married for the time being. You don't have to introduce me to someone, it will delay my work." And he was not a stubborn person. When Yingwan said this, she knew that she didn't want to. Although she felt it was a pity for the man's conditions, it was hard to say. After all, Yingwan didn't ask her to introduce him. She nodded, "Well, if you have any ideas, tell me, I will definitely find you a good one." She was quite sensible, so she didn't lobby Yingwan too much. She mainly saw that Yingwan didn't come back for many years, and this child had a somewhat cold personality. When the villagers saw him, they were inexplicably scared. Yingwan looked at her leaving back, her eyes slightly drooped. Someone called her at this time. "Miss Ying, Si family's young master Si Lu is on his way now, and it seems he is here to see you. No matter where they are, as long as there are suspicious people, people who are secretly observing will report to her." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 19. Si Lu. She had an incredibly good memory and was particularly impressed by this man. However, it was not a good impression. She said in a very light tone, "Don't worry about him. She had just applied for patents for the last 3 research results. Although the news was kept secret, someone could get the news in advance. There were a lot of people who wanted to cooperate with her. The main business of the SI family was closely related to one of her results. They definitely wanted to take the cooperation rights from her. However, she thought it would be Si Guanyi who came, but she didn't expect Si Lu to come. Si Lu came in a low-key car. The appearance of this car looked no different from an ordinary car, but a closer look at the brand showed that this car was extraordinary. It's just that there were not many people in the village who knew about it, so it didn't cause any shock along the way. Si Lu rested his elbow on his forehead and looked out the window board. Because of the guidance of some people, the car soon arrived at the hillside of Yingwan's house and stopped. The moment Si Lu stepped out of the car, a mountain breeze blew. He was wearing a dark blue windbreaker, so exquisite that he looked like he should be at the Paris Fashion Week, and he was out of tune with everything around him. He looked at the scene in front of him and found that he really couldn't connect this place with Yingwan. In his impression, this girl has always been serious and earnest, and cold. After a few years, she shouldn't change. Yes, he lied to his father. In fact, he had known Yingwan for a long time. When he came to the fence gate, Yingwan had already opened the door. Because it was different from the imagined scene, Si Lu was silent at the time. This woman appeared so unexpectedly. She had a simple bun with her long hair, wearing a simple and loose home white t-shirt with a panda pattern embroidered on it, and a pair of straight jeans on the lower body. She was dressed very homely, and even had an apple in her hand to chew. So it didn't match the cold and serious image of her often wearing a white coat in his impression. The handsome man who could not be described in words was silent for a moment, then curled his lips and called out, "Yingwan." Yingwan looked at him, no surprise, only a thin layer of coldness and unfamiliarity. Si Lu. Si Lu was more than a head taller than her. At this moment, he lowered his head, raised a mocking arc at the corner of his lips, and sneered, "You still remember me? Oh, of course, you will not forget anyone who has introduced you. She has a photographic memory." Yingwan nodded, "Even if I have a bad memory, I will not forget you. You gave me a special adult gift." Hearing her mention that incident, the smile on Si Lu's lips turned cold for a moment. The next second, Yingwan said the rest of the words. "After all, in my life, you are the only man who stripped naked and lay on my bed on my birthday. Shameless. Si Lu." In fact, Si Guanyi guessed one thing wrong, that is, Si Lu really seduced Yingwan. At that time, he was young and frivolous, and this super genius with only coldness in his eyebrows attracted his attention. She had just come of age at that time, and was closely watched by others, so she had basically no chance to be single. That day was her only chance. Si Lu felt that with his looks and figure, his plan would be 100% successful. The fact was that he suffered the only Waterloo in his life. And he never got up again. Becoming the Richest by Farming. Author, Gu Mushuang. Chapter 20. Hearing her mention this, the man in front of him obviously didn't know what blushing was. He said naturally, "Oh, you didn't want to do it when you just became an adult. Now you are 24, shouldn't you experience the joy of being an ordinary person?" His voice is very low, and his words are like scratching people's hearts. It's so sweet that it makes people numb. Many people hate Si Lu, but they can't stop countless people from being willing to give everything for him. It's because his external conditions are too excellent. People like him don't know what it means to be rejected. Yingwan is his nemesis. No one knows about this. Since then, his temper has become more and more irritable and weird, and he has been staying abroad. Until now, he finally met this woman again. This is also the reason why he didn't refuse when Si Guanyi asked him to come. Yingwan just raised his black and white eyes and looked at him. "I was too kind when I was young, so I didn't call the guards that day. If you do the same thing now, I will take a picture of you and send the video to your family, so that Si Guanyi can see how failed his education is. She turned around, but didn't close the door. Whatever, he laughed too wildly behind him, I have such a good figure, whoever sees it will benefit from it. He should be proud of having a son who is so perfect in everything. After these years, his face has become thicker and thicker. Si Lu walked into the courtyard and looked at the decoration inside. Do you like this kind of place? Yingwan, my style is certainly different from that of Master Si. You came here for Uxin this time. Uxin is one of the technologies developed by Yingwan. The main business of the Si family is communication products. The products they make have cooperation with various countries and are at the forefront of the world. And Uxin can strengthen the core values of their products and change the communication requirements. This has always been the technology that Si Guanyi is looking for, but it was developed by Yingwan. So, he needs to cooperate with Yingwan. The Si family has many businesses, but information technology now covers the whole world. Every new related technology may change the direction of the entire industry. Si Guanyi certainly attaches great importance to it. Si Lu touched his cheek with the tip of his tongue. Yes, but this is not the purpose of my coming. Yingwan turned to look at him. I need to consider it. She didn't like Si Lu, but she would not bring personal emotions to business. Si family is the leader in China now. This technology can only be chosen from Si family and foreign families. However, it has been implicitly mentioned that it is better to cooperate with domestic companies for core technology, or Yingwan can take over this business herself. However, Yingwan's company is not mainly engaged in this direction, and taking over the market may not necessarily snatch the market from the Si family. Besides, she has enough money, so there is no need to cut off other people's roads. Si Lu spread his hands, and his smile was still so evil. It's up to you, think about it as you want. When he came, he completely forgot Si Guanyi's entrustment, and whether Yingwan agreed or not was not in his consideration. The answer he needed was the last point mentioned by Si Guanyi. Yingwan is 24 years old. He did come with a purpose, but now, he can no longer be as frivolous as before. There is always a kind of person who makes people never forget. Just like Si Lu made countless young ladies from famous families in the imperial capital never forget him, he also had his own unforgettable memories.